I've never actually done this before. This is a theoretical fantasy. How do you row a boat?
Hello, welcome to my super secret channel, Mind for Story. Today I want to talk about depression in Chapter 5 of The Good Place. So I have a few extra disclaimers for this one. First, I am not trained or educated in treating mental health at all. And that's not what I'm going to be talking about or focusing about in this video. If you are interested in hearing things more in that sort of vein, I would recommend checking out Cinema Therapy. Jonathan Decker is a licensed therapist and he's one of the co hosts. Now, second, I understand that depression can be a topic some might find triggering when they hear others talking about it, whether or they're concerned that the conversation will be too heavy or that the person talking about it is going to make light of it in a way that feels inappropriate. And I have no idea what your barometer is, but if there's a possibility that my mishandling of the topic could set you off down a path that would majorly disrupt your day, I absolutely understand your choice to not sit through this video. And third is the usual. I spoil things, not just from this episode of The Good Place, but possibly from much later in the show. If you haven't watched The Good Place through to the end, please do so before watching my content. All right, so depression. I'm going to start with the sinkhole, which is a massive geological depression in the ground here in the neighborhood. No, I am not avoiding the topic of depression as it is related to mental health. Please bear with me while I sort of work my way around to that.
It appears that the sinkhole is not repairing itself.
This sinkhole opened up in the previous episode after Eleanor punched Chef Patricia's cake to stop Jason from revealing himself to the restaurant patrons at the opening. And it occurred in the face of Eleanor disregarding somebody else's feelings. The enormous effort that Chef Patricia is supposed to have put into making that cake. And were Chef Patricia not there as part of a torture team, it would probably pretty understandably elicit a lot of difficult to handle feelings in her. Because it's not just an act of destruction, this cake punching. It could also be viewed as sort of a rejection of an attempt of sort of loving connection. Chef Patricia saying, "Here are my gifts. I worked really hard on it. Hope you like it." And Eleanor's response being, bleep you, bleep the cake. I don't care about you at all. Which, to be completely clear, Eleanor definitely does not care about Chef Patricia one iota. And I ruined this offering, so no one else can experience this gift either. Here's to an eternity of isolation, only broken up and also reinforced by the pity of others over this exact event. Now, not everyone would have this extreme of a reaction or think this much on the matter, but the sinkhole it's a big response to this event, so I'm sort of inferring that it's meant to convey big feelings, as though the neighborhood were having emotional response to Eleanor.
I meant to tell you, I walked past it last night and I actually saw it get a little bit bigger.
So if I look at the sinkhole as though it were a depressed individual, and then I look at the manner in which Michael, Janet, and Tahani are engaging with it, I tried to draw some comparisons. So I saw Michael, who is the architect, sort of comes across like a panicked parent who is out of their depth and just wants to fix their child, / this is the sinkhole in their neighborhood. They want to get the sinkhole out of their neighborhood like they want to stop the depression in their child, is my comparison.
Janet, could you see what's wrong?
Everything.
Oh.
Janet, who Michael is working with to gather this information, she's, because she is Janet and she is not a human and not a computer and not a robot, but she remains emotionally detached, which has a way of sort of conveying her as though she is a mental health expert who has been employed to help this, depressed individual / the sinkhole or the neighborhood to heal from the sinkhole. And Tahani she's sort of someone who is determined to be the one to save the day, and she wants to be the reason everyone around her is happy. So she goes out to the sinkhole against Michael's orders to everyone to try and lift spirits.
Did I fix the sinkhole?
Tahani feels like, in this moment, someone who is... She puts too much of her sense of self into trying to sway somebody toward feeling the way she wants them to feel. Like she lets her self-worth or identity really be impacted on whether or not she is able to fix this sinkhole, or if this were somebody dealing with, a friend maybe, or a spouse, or I don't know who, but somebody in their sphere who is dealing with depression, and making it about themselves if they can't make the person feel better. If they cannot make it happen, then they make it mean something about themselves, which doesn't really help anyone. Definitely not the person who's actually struggling with the depression in the first place. Now, because this is, a sinkhole, and a magic sinkhole at that, it actually physically impacts her.
If a human gets too close to it, there can be disastrous side effects.
Ooh, that's one of the side effects.
If Tahani knew this was going to happen to her, would she still have come out to the sinkhole? And I ask because we know her appearance matters greatly to her. We know because she's talked about a multi-step skincare regimen. She's, the way she complained about being a fashion don't when she had those zigzag stripes all over her clothes. She cares a lot about how she looks. But, so how she looks is more than just her physical appearance. How she looks to others includes whether or not they admire her or are impressed by her. So I think if she felt her presence would still somehow fix the sinkhole, even though it definitely is not the thing that fixes the sinkhole, but if she thought her presence would fix the sinkhole, yes, I do think she still would have come out, even knowing that this would happen to her face. And I think that because it would be something that looked like a great sacrifice in a way where people could, applaud it, that she was willing to take one for the team in such a big way. Meaning, even though physically she would be unusual now, she'd look better as a person overall. So once the sinkhole does go away, Tahani, gives into the fantasy that she's the one who saved the day.
Could it be?
But
Did I? Tahani saves
no,
the you.
no, still not you. You had nothing to do with it.
And Michael has to make a big thing of showing the residents the sinkhole is gone.
Hey, it's good as new. Go ahead if you want. Just here. Woo! See? You can jump up and down on it.
Everything's as it should be again, perfectly fine, except for Eleanor, who, as his, new assistant, needs her help to figure out what caused and what fixed the sinkhole. So again, the sinkhole is actually a magical hole that Michael has put into the neighborhood on purpose. So how it's operating, it actually does not represent what depression is really like for a person, but when you look at it from, it was in response to Eleanor's behavior, it makes me think of how, in some cases, a bout of depression is rooted directly to a source of unhappiness. And in those cases, then you actually can make choices, and doing something about that, you could potentially feel better. So the sinkhole developed because Eleanor showed, blatant disregard for another person's feelings. And it seals itself when she does something to acknowledge Chidi's feelings and make an effort to, improve his feelings. Now, getting Chidi to this place where he would even tell her what it was he was feeling was very much a process, and it's not one that she went through very gracefully.
Sure, I'll do that, and we can start another lesson. I just realized
that I have blankets, so I'm going to take a nap using the several blankets that I already have. Good night.
Thought you liked teaching me, so now I'm just some huge burden for you?
Yes!
When Michael then puts out an order telling everyone they must stay put where they are, sort of a shelter in place announcement.
Starting right now, no one may go outside under any circumstances.
This forces Chidi and Eleanor to spend days trying to ignore each other in close proximity. And Chidi stops doing the chores. And the space starts to sort of look like how I guess we're supposed to imagine someone with depression lets their home look, with, the basically proof that somebody has been eating. I don't know, TV shows and movies like to do that. Somebody's feeling bad, and suddenly the next time you see them, they're surrounded by candy wrappers. And you know what? Sometimes that's a sign of celebration, too.
I used to just throw them in the sink and they'd be magically cleaned by morning.
Eleanor had been thinking the dishes were being done magically. And yes, in part this is because she hasn't been paying attention. But she also apparently hasn't told her he was doing the dishes or done the dishes in front of her. And I'm going to be completely honest, I would have made the same assumption Eleanor did, that the dishes were magically getting done in that setup. But I don't want to spend this time blaming Chidi. But sort of what's happening here, I'm sure he's not happy to always be doing the dishes, and I'm sure her response is enraging in the moment, but that rage isn't about the dishes, right? Like, he's mad at her for not being the soulmate and giving him the soulmate experience that he thought he was going to have. But focusing on the dishes is so much easier. He can point at it where she's clearly wrong and blow up, rather than, opening up and being vulnerable and not knowing how Eleanor would take that. He knows how Eleanor's going to take him yelling at her for the dishes. Yeah, that's what I think it is. It's the easier choice. Overall, the appropriate response from Eleanor should have been, okay, I will do the dishes since you did the dishes previously. Now, my question that comes to mind, if this is the good place and they have all this magic to do crazy things like fly through the air, why are these chores still being done by hand by the humans? Are they being done by all the humans? Because I don't think Tahani is doing her own dishes. And I suppose some people really take pleasure in creating order for themselves, or the small sort of sense of usefulness from those sorts of acts, like doing the dishes, doing your own laundry. So maybe the non-magical housework sort of functions as a way to keep humans caring, like sort of, by caring for their space, it keeps them with a sense of caring more generally. I don't know, you tell me, would you be doing dishes if you were somebody who had died and gone to what you were told was the good place? I don't know that I would.
Big deal. It meant anything from, I just bought weed from your nephew, to I secretly befriended your ex-girlfriend last year. Things got out of hand and now I'm her bridesmaid.
So here, Eleanor she pretty gently calls Chidi out when he says it's not a big deal, because she was trying to ask him what's going on with him. She was expressing some genuine interest in, like, she didn't think of it as his emotional state, but she's expressing some interest in his emotional state because he's been acting a little bit differently. And I think she hits the nail on the head when she talks about the answer being something secret, like in her case, the secretly befriending of a boyfriend's ex. But in Chidi's case, like, whatever the secret is, he's refusing to share it with her. And a lot of this show has a lot of secrets. Eleanor and Jason keeping the secret that they don't belong in the good place. Chidi secretly teaching them ethics. Later, the secret of Michael and everyone else in the neighborhood being, demons who are torturing them. Much later, when Michael secretly interferes on Earth during the human second chance. The secret, or I don't know that it was intended to be a secret, I don't think it was, but it's secret because only Sean seems to know that the point system into the good place or the bad place isn't operating right. So there's a lot of secrets in this show, and I'm seeing sort of a connection between secrets and power, because if you have less power, you withhold information from those who have power over you. And if you're the one with more power, withholding information can feel like a key way to sort of keep the power, to maintain that power. And Chidi, I think he just feels powerless to change the thing that has been bothering him.
They live right next door to the sinkhole. I was wondering, as my assistant, maybe you could put them up for a while?
While Eleanor and Chidi are, arguing, Michael arrives with Nina and Bart and asks Eleanor if they can stay at her place because they live too close to the sinkhole, which is now expanding. And while trying to hide their conflict from Nina and Bart, who they find out is a marriage counselor and somebody whose career was about, detecting or identifying identity theft and fraud.
You are hiding something.
What on earth would I be hiding?
No, not you. Him.
They jump on this idea that what they're doing is squabbling.
I'm sure the stress of the sinkhole has caused lots of soulmates squabbling.
Squabble, squabble.
The way Chidi says this, it makes me think of, like, gobble gobble. Like, the Thanksgiving turkey impressions people sometimes make, I guess. But it makes me think of Bob's Burgers. Because Bob's favorite holiday is Thanksgiving, and the rest of his family is sort of lukewarm about the day at best. Sometimes this difference of like, sort of feeling toward this holiday is okay, but in several of the Thanksgiving episodes, Bob definitely takes it poorly that his family does not really care that much about this holiday. And sometimes I feel like honesty really is the best option, but sometimes I look at moments like Thanksgiving with the Belchers, and it's clear this is a holiday that matters enormously to Bob. And I think maybe the right answer is to dig deep and find a way to be enthusiastic about, like, the top 2 or 3 things someone you love loves. So in Bob's case, it's this one day. The Belchers could find a way to celebrate this day in a way that makes them all happy, right? I mean, I don't know, you tell me how I'm wrong in the comments. I'm totally off topic. I'm talking about Thanksgiving episodes of Bob's Burgers. And the word squabble will now also forever make me think of Bluey. Because there's an episode wherein Bluey is upset her parents have had a squabble, and she decides that she will never squabble again. They say squabble a lot in this episode is why. And the reality is that she can't make it 2 minutes without veering toward squabble territory while playing with her sister Bingo. But the idea of conflict really makes Bluey scared, and I think lots of people like to make light of things that are actually a bigger deal to them by calling a fight a squabble, or referring to yourself as feeling off rather than depressed. For similar reasons that Bluey dislikes conflict, it all comes back to weigh down a fear of abandonment or banishment. Personally, I know I struggle to view any disagreement as lower stakes than am I willing to restructure my life to live alone over this. It leads to a lot of avoidance and accommodating others in attempts to bury my own displeasure. And some attempts might be successful, but I've been asked what's up often enough to know that I'm not actually great at burying my displeasure. I'm going to go ahead and start trying to work on my conflict tolerance. Maybe, I don't know, once a week I'll intentionally say something, even if I think it's possible that another person or people around me won't like it. Not to be mean, just to get acclimated to that discomfort. I also think that sometimes that will probably just mean being the person asking someone else, hey, what's up, or are you okay? Because then I'm inviting them to say something that maybe I won't like. The deal there being that I have to be prepared to ask the question 3 times. Because a lot of us have been socialized to keep things bottled up, or to not share because it's impolite or a buzzkill or something like that. Is you have to say you're okay, right? But making the offer to listen to answer to the actual, the actual answer to this question, are you okay, or what's up with you? If I make that offer 3 times, because there is something about asking or offering people things 3 times that lets people genuinely accept the offer if they want to.
I was so excited, and it isn't exactly what I thought.
Finally, Chidi does come out with what it is that's been bothering him. And I want to acknowledge Eleanor, specifically for how she chooses to respond once she does hear what's been bothering Chidi. She doesn't wrap her self-worth into the equation. She sees how she figures into this situation and lets herself understand Chidi's issue. She offers him the boat he referenced when he was talking about what he thought things were going to be like when he came to the good place. Or I guess he thought paradise. Which shows she has been listening. Something we already know she's previously been bad at. She couldn't remember anything about Chidi in the first 2 episodes. So Eleanor, instead, in this moment, she focused on understanding Chidi's problem, validating his feelings, and sort of making an offer, not just the boat, but the card that says fork off Eleanor, that he can use to let her know when he needs space from her. That all of which he is free to accept or reject. And I want to acknowledge others who are similarly capable of, doing this, putting somebody else's experience and feelings ahead of your ego. Because I feel like you're so far ahead of the curve in terms of, maybe in terms of emotional maturity, I guess. And my wish for all of you is that your choices in these moments inspire those around you to act in kind when you are the person who needs understanding and validation. Now, because she's actually being tortured, Eleanor doesn't get to just feel good about herself when the sinkhole closes up in response to her making things better with Chidi.
You and I are going to find this problem.
I tried to imagine being Eleanor in this conversation with Michael. And I sort of started off really light. I'm happy. I feel good about myself. Then it all starts to crash and burn. My stomach drops. I feel the area around my mouth really wants to tighten, but that might give me away, so I can't do that. I've got this sort of panic anger rising in me. I mean, like, I've been good, better than I've ever been, and it's supposed to be solving my problems, but it's somehow making the problem worse. I'm so mad about this. My face is going hot, but hopefully not red. Michael is going to find out about me. He's going to know that I'm the reason all this stuff is happening. I am doomed. And not like, life on Earth doomed. Like, if I get found out, I'm going to be tortured for all of eternity, endlessly. There will be no end. It's bad. I'm feeling my heart in my chest. My breath takes more effort, and the perfect weather around me is mocking me. So yeah, this is like full-blown functioning, can't actually give over to any sort of a panic attack because I'm still in the moment. Really grateful for adrenaline right now. Yeah, that's how I think this would feel. Not liking it. So after looking for depression in this chapter, I know I focused a lot on the sinkhole. Maybe that seems cowardly, but I had to work with what was in the episode. I talked a lot about Chidi. Chidi isn't depressed at this point, but I feel like if it hadn't come out what was actually bothering him, there was a festering anger and disappointment that maybe in time could have led to an actual case of depression in him. But thankfully, Eleanor was relentless, and he did eventually crack and, say what was on his mind. But I hope I was able to make this somewhat relevant to depression. After looking for it in this episode, what I'm really noticing is Eleanor is not depressed. She's in hard spot after hard spot, but she does not get depressed in the story. And I think it's because she's actively trying to deal with the situations she's finding herself in. I know one of the sort of key ingredients to depression, in my experience, is feeling hopeless. But if you act, you generate hope, because otherwise the action would be pointless. I think I saw that, honestly, in an Instagram post by The New Happy. And I think that's what I'm seeing in the case of Eleanor. She acts, and therefore there is hope. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a lovely day.
Tahani saves the...
No, still not you. You had nothing to do with it.